Well guys, considering that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is coming out this Friday, I thought I would revisit the first film because I was supposed to review all the Marvel films back in the end of 2016, but I only did the Phase 1 films. And I will admit, I am a little hesitant on reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy like right now because I wanted to review these films chronologically, meaning I wanted to review Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and then go to Guardians of the Galaxy. But you know, considering that Volume 2 is coming out like this Friday, I wanted to get it out of the way because it'd be more relevant. And I thought about it, and looking at this film, you don't really know when chronologically Guardians of the Galaxy takes place. You have no idea, really. Because it's so far out into space that you don't really know when this film takes place. It could possibly take place at any given time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And honestly, this film really stands on its own. There are Easter eggs in it that make it a Marvel movie, but the Easter eggs tie really well into the story, and it stands on its own as a Marvel film. And the only time I can ever really recall a Marvel film ever doing that was The Avengers. And knowing that this film was close to The Avengers, that's amazing. I remember talking to friends back in 2014 about this film, and a majority of people actually liked this better than The Avengers. In my own personal opinion, I enjoy The Avengers because of the hard work that was put into it and tying all these different characters together like Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, and putting them into one movie. But I understand why people like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a funny and different movie. I would say that there is a lot more humor in this than The Avengers. The Avengers was funny, but Chris Pratt and all the other elements in this movie sell this movie, and you see what James Gunn was trying to do with his vision. This is such a different movie, and knowing that we live in a society now where a movie with a talking humanoid raccoon is well accepted and is critically acclaimed, that's amazing. Let's talk about Chris Pratt in this movie. This is the second time where I've seen someone in a Marvel movie that sells as a character. Robert Downey Jr. did such an amazing job as Iron Man, but with the other actors like Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth playing as Captain America and Thor, you see that they're playing characters, but you know, they're just actors playing characters. They're not doing a bad job, but like Robert Downey Jr., I feel like he's Tony Stark sometimes. And this is the second time in a Marvel film where I was able to buy that an actor was properly portraying a character and selling it. Chris Pratt as Star-Lord is an amazing character in this film, and it really made me want Star-Lord to meet Tony Stark one day. That's how close to comparison these two characters are. I like the opening to this film because we get an understanding of why Star-Lord is the way that he is. He's basically a kid who grows up, and he actually has the opportunity to play pretend. Like, he's like his own little persona that he created as a kid. He's Star-Lord because he's in outer space now. And it was cool kind of like seeing Chris Pratt play kind of like this man-child, really, where, you know, he's funny, but also he is living his dream. He is like this Star-Lord character that he made as a kid. So it was really cool to see that, and I love Chris Pratt in this film. I loved him in the Lego movie before, and when I found out that he was doing this film, I was on board because of the humor that he did in the Lego movie. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this film is that even though that there weren't any standalone films that came before this movie, the characters that are on this team, this Guardians team, they really tie well together. Like, you don't really necessarily need standalone films to like know who these characters are. The film properly tells you who they are without like going into depth of where they came from, their origin. The film still progresses. And it's really hard to do that sometimes in a movie, especially a team superhero movie, where we have characters that we've never seen before on screen, and you're trying to introduce all of them so you can move on forth with the story knowing that these characters are in place. That's really hard work, and I'm surprised that Guardians of the Galaxy was able to do this well. And films nowadays that come out have a hard time doing that, and I'm sorry, like, can we just make like a YouTube video where we don't bash on DC? I mean, I'm sorry, like, I don't even know what that was. But going back to the review, yes, these characters are well balanced. I think they're introduced properly, and it doesn't really focus a whole lot on who they are. I mean, it tells you who they are, but it's very brief, and the film still moves forward. It's almost kind of like tied into the story, like, properly. I really enjoyed Gamora also in this film. I think this is the second badass chick that we have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe next to Black Widow. At the time, Black Widow was the only female character in the MCU, and knowing that we finally had another really unique female character was just really refreshing, and I'm glad that they acknowledged that we don't have enough female characters in the MCU, and Gamora was such a good add-on because she's such a badass chick in this film. I also really like Drax the Destroyer. I thought he was just gonna be a buff badass in this film. David Bautista actually did a really good job. That's really surprising considering that he's from WWE. But honestly, we get a lot of comedic elements from him as well. His species is very literal, so he can't read sarcasm, and because of that, things go over his head. So it's very comedic to see kind of like, you know, Chris Pratt or Rocket Raccoon talking to him, and he takes everything so seriously. And it's just very comedic to watch sometimes. And let's talk about Rocket Raccoon, voiced by Bradley Cooper. I love Bradley Cooper. I loved him in The Hangover, I loved him in Limitless, I loved him in American Sniper, and knowing that he was finally a part of the MCU was just really cool to me because I really like him as an actor. And knowing that he voiced one of my favorite characters in the MCU, Rocket Raccoon, it was just a bonus. I really enjoy Rocket Raccoon, and it's a raccoon. It's a talking raccoon that shoots things. I don't even need to go into explanation as to why I like that. It's just crazy. It's different. It's in a live action movie. That's something that you would expect out of a cartoon or something like that. This is in a live action movie, and the motion capture is so well done. It looks like a raccoon. It doesn't look cliche or cartoony. They took an actual raccoon, did some motion capture work, and we have Rocket Raccoon. That's amazing. That is in a movie. Need I say more? And let's talk about one of the most heartwarming characters in the film, Groot. I really enjoyed Groot, and even though he has a limited amount of things to say, I am Groot. You can tell that this is just such a lovable character, and you can tell that he's kind of a pacifist. He's just there to kind of protect Rocket Raccoon, and he's just so lovable, and he seems harmless by the way that he walks and, you know, the facial expressions. The scene in the movie where he dies and he sacrifices himself to save the Guardians, I thought that was very heartwarming, and it just goes back to show that Groot is just such a lovable character. No wonder there were so many toys sold, because Groot, he's cute. It's Groot. And I don't just like Groot because of his cuteness. I also like Groot because he did this in the movie. That's hilarious, honestly. That's really funny. Let's talk about another element in this film, the villain, Ronan the Accuser. He's fine. He's totally fine. He wasn't bad or anything like that. He was what he needed to be. He needed to be this godlike character who took on the Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's something I really enjoyed about this film, is when you're making a superhero team, you need like a godlike villain in order for them to fight. And, you know, that's something that they did in this film. Okay, that's different. That's different. They still wouldn't have been able to stop. Never mind. You know what? Okay, this is about Marvel. This is about Marvel. This is not about DC. This is about Marvel. I'm going to offend so many people. And I just love this film because it is in the MCU, but it finally acknowledges that there's a space portion of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you look at the Transformers films, what's the one thing that we've been wanting since like the first or second film? Transformers in space, Cybertron, stuff like that. There's a 5th movie coming out, and Optimus finally goes out into space, but it looks like he's only going to be there for a brief amount of time because he goes back to Earth. Guardians of the Galaxy did this in their first movie. They're in space in their first movie. So knowing that they did that is so awesome. James Gunn, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. That, like, Green Lantern should have taken place in outer space throughout the movie, but they put him on Earth. Thank you, James Gunn, for getting Guardians of the Galaxy in space. I really appreciated that. Like, that goes to show that when you stick to the source material, a movie can be really successful and likable. And another thing that I really appreciated, they finally showed off Thanos. We did see Thanos in the after credits of the Avengers, but it was just like, you know, the side of his face. But we finally saw Josh Brolin as Thanos in the chair, in the throne. He's talking. That was awesome. That was a good sneak peek of what Avengers Infinity War is going to be like. So yes, guys, I really enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy. I absolutely enjoy it. It's one of those Marvel movies that doesn't need to categorize itself as a Marvel movie to be successful. It doesn't need all these different Easter eggs and all these different cameos that all these MCU movies have in order to be successful. James Gunn was trying to make somewhat of an original film with characters from comic books. It stands on its own really well, and that's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite Phase 2 Marvel movies out there. Definitely check out Guardians of the Galaxy. It's so good. It's such a different movie too. There's a talking raccoon. And one more thing, this is a little side note. In this movie, they acknowledge that the Nova Corps exists. If there's anybody who works for Marvel out there, please make a Nova movie. That would be awesome. So yes, guys, that was my review of Guardians of the Galaxy, and I have a really special announcement. So, usually when I do these movie reviews, I usually do them on Fridays or the weekend of. Something came in the mail. I got tickets to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 3 days prior to its release. So my review is going to be early. I am so excited. Thank you so much for Mind On Movies for giving me this opportunity. I'm going to be seeing the movie tomorrow, and I am going to give you my review the night of. So stick around. Please subscribe for my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Thank you guys so much. Comment down below what you think of Guardians of the Galaxy. Like the video, share it, and please subscribe to PixelTalk if you haven't yet for more videos, movie reviews, gaming content, and so on. And what's your favorite Guardian? Who's your favorite Guardian character? Comment down below. Thank you guys so much. I'm Corbett Stuckey, and this is Pixel Talk.